Okay, so today we're going to talk about variables, and I know that sounds like a super scary term, but don't worry, it will all make sense very, very soon. So, what is a variable? So what's the big question? A variable is essentially a box that contains a value. You may know what this value is, you may not know what this value is, and I understand that it already sounds confusing. Don't worry, you've actually used these before. I want you to think back to elementary school when you were just learning how to add and subtract. Your teacher might ask you something along the lines of, what plus 2 equals 5? All right, so you would solve this how you solved every problem when you were in elementary school. Fingers. Start off with your total of 5. You take away 1, 2, and you're left with 3. All right, and then you know that what plus 2 equals 5? 3 plus 2 equals 5. And without even knowing it, maybe you were in 2nd grade, you used a variable, and that's awesome. But the reason why we're using variables is to express these equations in any way, shape, or form, because that's what math is all about. So let's think about all the different ways that we can say this. We can say, what plus 2 equals 5? All right, that seems pretty long and boring, and the whole point of math is that we're supposed to use numbers, not letters. So we're going to disregard that. Another way to use it is the example I just said before, a box that contains a value. Box plus 2 equals 5. Okay? So using that same terminology, or that same method, you could figure out that 3 plus 2 equals 5. Great. Now, as it turns out, we don't necessarily use a box to represent a variable because there's only one box, there's very limited shapes that you can use, and that's going to get super confusing. I wouldn't want to use a circle because a circle plus 2 equals 5 looks a lot like 0 plus 2 equals 5, and I hope that we all know that is just plain wrong. So what we tend to use are letters. The most common letters are X, Y, and Z, and A, B, and C. You might ask, why would we use letters? Letters, for lack of a better term, are better. There's 26 of them. You can use uppercase, you can use lowercase. They can just be random, or they can represent something when you're trying to figure out like a formula, but we'll get to that later. So let's try and plan this out. So instead of a box, let's try and use a letter. Okay? So let's say X, the most common variable, plus 2 equals 5. All right? Now you know that X is unknown right now, but it could only mean one thing, because there's only one thing plus 2 that equals 5, and that would be 3. All right? You're still going to solve this the same exact way.